What's up, guys? How you doing, guys? I'm LQ. This is the LQ Review. Thank you so much for joining me right here at my YouTube channel. This is where we talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff that we love to talk about. Movies, video games, comic books, and TV shows. And right now, I'd like to give you guys my thoughts on Cobra Kai Season 3. Now, I know it's been out for about a week. Reality is, I watched it a week ago. On January 1st, I woke up at 7 a.m. and by 12:30, I was done. I watched it straight through. And I loved it. I loved it. Here's the thing about Cobra Kai, and I've said this before. Cobra Kai gives us the nostalgia that we crave. We're a nostalgia craving generation. We love nostalgia, and we crave it. But you can do nostalgia good, and you can do nostalgia bad. And Cobra Kai does it good because they take characters that we know and love from the Karate Kid movies, and they evolve the characters. They don't make them carbon copy versions of what they were 30 years ago, because that's the thing. We change over time. We change over time, and that's just what we do. We become different people over time. Therefore, it's really easy to climb into a show like this and enjoy the fact that Johnny is not the antagonist. He's also not necessarily the protagonist. And Daniel is not necessarily the antagonist, and he's not necessarily the protagonist. There's shades of gray with these characters. Now, I think most people can agree that Kreese is an antagonist, but even in this season, they tried to give him some shades of gray as well. Clearly, he's an antagonist, but they tried to humanize him this season, which I really appreciated. So, this season started out, and what it did right away, which they had to do, was they addressed the end of Season 2. And that was incredibly important because Season 2 left us off in such a bad place with Miguel, with Johnny, with Daniel, with Sam, with everybody is in this horrible place. Robbie, and the first episode of Season 3 establishes where everybody's at now. Everybody's dealing with this awful thing that happened at the end of Season 2. And they actually call the episode's title is Aftermath, because it deals with this horrific school fight. And they did it in a very in my opinion, they did it in a very realistic way, you know. And this show is anything but realistic, you know. I even as a fan of the show, I have to concede the fact that it's not a realistic show. This is a fantasy. This is a fantasy that resembles the real world, but it's still a fantasy. And they're able to keep it grounded. They're able to keep this fantasy grounded by addressing issues like this. They handled the aftermath in a very realistic way. Early on in this season, we got Daniel and Johnny teaming up to go find Robbie, and that was a lot of what we like. You know, we like seeing Daniel and Johnny together, and I think that we root for Daniel and Johnny to be friends. We want that. I think as Karate Kid fans, we want Daniel and Johnny to be friends, and we root for it. And then, after they had their fight in the garage, it's like the creators have this idea in their mind, and I'm not bashing on the creators here, because obviously the creators love this content very much, and they've treated it with great reverence. Excuse me. But for some reason, they've got it in their head that every season Daniel and Johnny have to fight. When Daniel and Johnny started throwing punches at each other in the garage, I rolled my eyes. I was like, okay, do they really have to fight again? Seriously? And it's getting tiring. It's getting tiring seeing these two people who, they want to be friends. They want to be friends. I see it when they're together, when they're interacting together. They want to be friends. And then when they have a disagreement, the first thing they do is throw punches. It's silly. It's silly. I don't like that aspect of it. But what I do like is the way that the show handles the nostalgia. They give us nostalgia, give us the things that we recognize from the Karate Kid, but they also take the characters into new directions, and they also introduce a new generation of characters, and they've introduced a new generation of characters that we like. Let's talk about Star Wars for a second. I'm gone on record. I have no problem with what they did with Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. No problem. It was 30 years later. Luke Skywalker is going to have 30 years of experiences between Return of the Jedi and The Last Jedi. And that is where the writers decided to take him. Was this place where he was now cynical about the Jedi. That's cool. I don't care. I mean, that's fine. And I actually really like the direction that they took him. But what they didn't do well was Star Wars wanted to pull back on the nostalgia, not give us a whole bunch of nostalgia, and really double down on the new characters. And the problem was that nobody really liked the new characters in the sequel trilogy. Rey, Finn, Poe, I'm sure they were fine, but nobody loved them. And what Cobra Kai did was they gave us new characters that we like. And Sam, Robbie, Miguel, Hawk. These are characters that we enjoy. We enjoy spending time with them. So that when the show does pivot away from Daniel and Johnny, it pivots to characters that are still interesting. Tori, Aisha. These are interesting characters. Which Aisha wasn't in this season. But these are all interesting characters. So when it pivots away from the old school characters, we are now with characters that we still enjoy. So that is something that Cobra Kai has done very well. And quite frankly, in 30 years, I think that people would enjoy having a Cobra Kai reunion series with these characters because they are just that likable or dislikable, depending on who they are, what character they are. Let's talk about the trip to Japan. So I was afraid that the trip to Japan was going to be very, well, I've lost touch with Mr. Miyagi's karate, and I've got to go to Japan to reignite that passion for karate. I was afraid it was going to be like some sort of contrived personal demon that Daniel was fighting to go to Japan, and I'm not sure that I would have bought it. But having to go to Japan for his job, which is in auto manufacturing, is very believable because Japan is where a lot of that stuff happens. And then since he was in Japan, he decided to take a trip to Tomi Village, Japan, and again, I really liked it. It was one of the high points of this season. Seeing him reunite with Kumiko, seeing him reunite with Chosen, and seeing the what has happened with both of those characters in the past 30 years, it almost made my heart hurt for the possible relationship that Daniel and Kumiko could have had. I watching it, I'm like, okay, Daniel can't be with Kumiko. He's married, and I'm sure he doesn't want to be with Kumiko over his wife. He's married to his wife. He loves his wife, but when I see them together, there's still chemistry, and there's still love there, and you could tell there was still love there through their interaction. Even the fact that she said, well, nobody ever fought to the death for me. There's still love there, but as life does sometimes, we do not end up with our first love or our second love or our third love. We end up with our love, and that was an interesting dynamic to see Daniel in, where he's now reunited with probably his second love, Kumiko. I thought the actress nailed it. She did a great job. It was great seeing her back, and the whole letter exchanging sequence where she allowed Mr. Miyagi to speak to Daniel again through letter. It was one of the emotional highs of the season for me. And then seeing his Daniel's day with Chosen, it was so much fun, and I love the fact that they gave Chosen a redemptive arc. Not everybody, again, it's been 30 years. He has grown. Chosen has grown, and he has become an honorable man. And he spent years trying to atone for the fact that he behaved dishonorably. And showing Daniel Miyagi-Do moves that Daniel didn't know, it harkened back to the original Karate Kid movies, where in the first movie it was the crane kick, in the second movie it was drum technique, in the third movie it was kata, and that these karate techniques that Daniel learns in the movie, he applies at the end in the final fight. And we saw that here. We saw him learn this new technique that Chosen taught him, and then we saw him apply it in the final fight against Kreese. And that was just, again, it shows so much respect for the source material. It harkened back to the source material, and I just loved it. So even the setup and execution, definitely harkens back to that source material. So the Okinawa trip was phenomenal. And then seeing Johnny have to start his own dojo was a lot of fun. It's kind of seeing him start from scratch. It was just it was fun to watch. And then seeing the Johnny Lawrence's creative process. Eagle Fang. How cool is Eagle Fang karate? I'm like, I asked my wife, I said, so would you be Miyagi-Do, Cobra Kai, or Eagle Fang? And I'm over here thinking I'd be Eagle Fang. And she thinks about it for a second, and then she says, I'd be the girl going to school and ignoring all those karate weirdos. And I was like, that would be you. So Johnny's starting his own dojo, Eagle Fang, and they start getting harassed by the Cobra Kai kids. And let's talk about Hawk for a second. You see Hawk go through changes in this season. I saw some people say that his change of heart at the end kind of came out of nowhere. If you're really watching the season, you understand that it didn't come out of nowhere. That he's been wrestling with Cobra Kai, the bully nature of Cobra Kai, who he wants to be versus who he used to be. Kreese's techniques, his tactics, you can tell that he wrestled with it all season long, to where there at the very end, he made that decision, I don't want to be a dark Jedi. And he went back to the light. And it gave Hawk a lot of humanity, because I thought Hawk was just becoming this really generic bully. And again, it made his character more complex, and it kind of went with the theme of shifting allegiances that we saw a lot in this season, especially with Robbie, shifting his allegiance to Cobra Kai. Kreese was almost like the Emperor courting Robbie to join the dark side. Again, very layered storytelling here, very complex storytelling, and it's just a lot of fun to see it unfold. And let's talk about Allie. I think everybody kind of knew that Allie was going to make an appearance in this episode, and I'm glad that she didn't come from Chicago all the way to California to save the life of some kid who was mentored by a guy that she dated briefly in high school. I mean, that would have seemed contrived and silly. But Allie coming home to where her family lives for Christmas, that was believable. Lots of people go home for Christmas. So her going home for Christmas was believable, and saying, you know what, I'm going to reach out to an old friend that Facebook messaged me, and we might grab dinner. Again, very believable. That's a normal thing that people do. They go home for Christmas and they reconnect. That's normal. So I bought it. It was authentic. It was genuine. And then to see, I'm glad that they didn't automatically make Allie a love interest for Johnny. Right? They kind of toyed with it a little bit, but at the end, it wasn't about him hooking up with Allie, because he already is now in a relationship with Miguel's mom. And that's who we all want Johnny to be with, is Miguel's mom. At least most of us. I don't want to see him be with Allie. But he needed that date with Allie. He needed to spend that day with Allie so that he could let go of Allie. And I think that's another thing, that another concept that a lot of people can relate to and resonate, and it resonates with people, is that we need to be able to let go of our past so we can move on and become the future selves that we're supposed to be. And he was hanging on to Allie. I mean, it was obvious from previous seasons. He was still hanging on to that relationship. That relationship almost defined who he was. And the fact that he was able to spend the day with her and realize, this is not the person that I'm supposed to be with. There might still be feelings there, and there might still be chemistry there, but this is not the person I'm supposed to be with. And to understand that and be able to let go. I mean, at the end when he hugged her and he said, I needed this. That was an emotional high point for the season when you realize, okay, Johnny is able to put that relationship behind him and move on now. It was just a fantastic guest spot. I don't think we'll see. I mean, if we do see more Valley, I don't think it's gonna be much. I don't think she's gonna become a reoccurring character or a regular. She might pop up here or there, but honestly, I kind of doubt it. To be honest with you, she served her part. She served her part in this series, and we don't need to see her anymore. With Chosen as well, we don't need to see Chosen again. I've heard people say, hopefully Chosen comes back and helps Daniel and Johnny with Miyagi-Do. That would be great. No, that would be contrived. That wouldn't be great. Chosen has now served his role in this series, and he doesn't need to come back. If he does, I'll watch it, and it'll be good or bad. But he doesn't need to come back now. He has served his purpose. All right. The LaRusso house fight. All right. One of the weaknesses of this season was the fact that after the school fight at the end of season 2, you would think the authorities would be really, really watching this karate stuff that's going on in the valley. And the fact that they Cobra Kai bust into the LaRusso's house and starts beating people up badly. Yeah, police need to get involved. And the fact that Daniel went to Cobra Kai dojo instead of the police station, it makes me wonder how emotionally invested Daniel himself is into this rivalry, which is too much. Right? It's too much. He's too emotionally invested in this rivalry. Because he should just call the police, wait for the police to come, and have the police go and do what they do with Kreese. But he didn't do that. The fight was good, but again, it was very reminiscent of the fight at the end of season 2. You know, an all-out brawl where a bunch of kids are now karate experts, and you know, just a lot of it seemed very choreographed and unnecessary. I get what they were doing with it. It was an opportunity to bring all the conflicts in the season to conclusion in one minute, or in one sequence. Especially the Tori Sam fight, which was really well done, really well handled, and that rivalry is a rivalry that I expect to continue to see grow. Because both those characters just have a lot of animosity towards each other, and both of them are really good actresses, and I'm really enjoying the dynamic between the two of them. But that was a sequence that was able to conclude a lot of story threads for the season. So I get it. I just prefer the tournament setting for the final fight. And I hope it looks like they're going to go that way in season 4, and I hope that they go that way in season 4, because I think the tournament is a more effective way of ending a Karate Kid story. Kreese's backstory, I saw some people say that it felt very unrealistic. It looked unrealistic, that it was filmed with poor production values, etc., etc. I liked Kreese's backstory. I thought that it humanized him, and it allowed us to have a little empathy for the antagonist, which all the best antagonist is somebody that you can have empathy for. You know, you think about Thanos, you think about Loki, you think about even Darth Vader. The best antagonists are ones that you understand where they're coming from. They might be evil. They might be evil people, but you understand how they got that way. And now we understand how Kreese got that way. And how his relationship with Terry Silver formed. And obviously, the call he made at the end of the episode was to Silver, and clearly we're going to get Silver in season 4, and that's exciting. And I love the fact that they are willing to make Karate Kid 3 an important part of the franchise, because Karate Kid 3 doesn't get enough love, in my opinion. All right, so I really liked this season. I thought it was really well done, really well handled, and there hasn't been a bad season of Cobra Kai yet. I'm just amazed that they keep turning out quality content like they are. And it's because they respect the content, they respect the source material, and they have a vision for it. And that's a big thing. You have to respect the source material, but you also have to have a vision. I've talked about Star Wars a couple times in this review. I haven't always felt like Kathleen Kennedy respects the source material. She doesn't respect the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy. And she really doesn't have a vision. Cobra Kai, they respect the source material and they have a vision for the future. And they don't have to be married to the source material. They don't have to remake it. It is a continuation, but it's a continuation that respects what came before. And that's why this has been such high quality. So guys, I love Season 3. But I'm just one person. What did you think of Cobra Kai Season 3? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your take on it. While you're down there giving your comments, make sure that you subscribe to my channel. I put out a lot of content, and I want to make sure that you're up to date with everything that I'm doing. And as always, thank you so much for joining me right here at the LQ Review, where we get to talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff that we love to talk about. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.